Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated for the traditional Chinese lion dance performed by the Hong Luk Troupe of Toronto, Canada. As president of the College Faculty Senate, I welcome you to the inauguration of the fifth president of Daemen College, Dr. Edwin Clausen. The faculty congratulate President Clausen on his inauguration and look forward to a productive collaboration during his tenure. In this electronic age, I would also ask you to please turn off all cell phones, pagers, or beepers so as not to disturb the ceremony. I would now like to introduce the Vice Chairman of the Daemen College Board of Trustees, Thomas E. Bridges, who will be our Master of Ceremonies for today's event.
Thank you, Laurie. You'll be surprised to learn that I was not the first choice, but Eddie Murphy took another gig. But we did have a little bit of Hollywood, nevertheless. That was pretty spectacular. On behalf of the Daemen College Board of Trustees, we're happy to share in this special day of celebration as the college welcomes its fifth president, Ed Clausen. We welcome those who have traveled from afar and near to be with us here today, including our community leaders, fellow trustees, the college's extraordinary faculty and staff, alumni, other distinguished guests and friends, which includes, by the way, our fourth president of Daemen College, Martin Addisman, who's come from California to join with us today. And particularly all the Daemen students who have joined us. I now ask you to stand for the Canadian and American national anthems and remain standing for the invocation, which will be delivered by Daemen College Director of Campus Ministry, Cassandra Salter-Smith.
God the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rang clear, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Let us pray. Grant, Lord, to our new president, Dr. Edwin G. Clausen, the grace to love that which is worth loving, to know that which is worth knowing, and to value that which is most precious to you. We ask that you watch over our students and those that teach them. Help them to continue to value the experience of learning. Give them a true sense of judgment and the wisdom to see that which is right and to recognize that which is just. Bestow your blessings upon the Daemen community and our friends and family members who are with us today. As they move forward in the world, guide them so each may achieve all that they may hope for. Amen. You may be seated.
As I mentioned, we have a number of distinguished dignitaries with us today who would like to welcome and honor our new president. First, I have the honor of introducing Laura Monti, Western New York Regional Director for the Office of U.S. Senator Charles E. Schumer. Please join me in welcoming her.
Thank you. The Senator asked me to read the following statement. Good afternoon. First, let me say how sorry I am for not being able to be there with you in person. The Senate is in session and we're likely to have votes this afternoon. Today is truly a day for celebration at Daemen College. Successful schools begin at the top, and today Daemen is putting a real leader at the helm in Dr. Edwin Clausen. For the last decade, he has led the school's academic affairs department, spearheading a curriculum that educates graduates to be competitive in the modern economy. With the economy still in rough shape, there has never been a more important time to have someone at the top who understands the skills that students need to compete for jobs, and that's Dr. Clausen's specialty. As Daemen College begins a new chapter with Dr. Clausen, I have no doubt that the school is in good hands and will remain a shining example of our state's tradition of first-rate educational institutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Monti. I am privileged to introduce the New York State Senator Michael Rosenhofer. Please join me in welcoming him.
Well, thank you very much for including me in today's ceremony. I'm just so impressed by the turnout here of students and faculty. And one of the things they say when you replace a great leader is that you have big shoes to fill. And I know that, Dr. Clausen, you have some big shoes to fill, but I know that you're up to the task. I know that you have the scholarship. I know that you have the leadership skills. I know that you have the academic skills to carry Daemen College into the future. When I walked in here, I saw behind me Daemen College, a world of opportunity. And I think by selecting Dr. Clausen, you've committed to keeping that tradition alive here at the college. So congratulations, and I look forward to continued great things here at Daemen College.
Thank you, Senator. I now have the honor of introducing the Mayor of Buffalo, Mr. Byron Brown.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm certainly very pleased to be here with all of you today to congratulate Dr. Edwin Clausen on becoming the 5th president of Daemen College. And Dr. Clausen, I can tell you that I have spent some time here at Daemen I think back to when I was a 19-year-old undergraduate student at Buffalo State College, and I got a great job as a DJ in an establishment here on Daemen College, which was called the Rathskeller. I don't know how many of you remember the Rathskeller, but it was a great job, and that was where I first learned what a wonderful institution Daemen College is. Let me say we are blessed with many assets in this community. One of our major assets is the number of colleges and universities that we have in Buffalo and Western New York. When we talk about sectors that can improve the Western New York economy and help to create jobs for our residents, higher education is certainly one of the most important. Dr. Clausen has been active in the community in many meaningful ways. He developed the Daemen College Center for Sustainable Communities and Civic Engagements. For 7 years, the center has collaborated with neighborhoods in Buffalo, such as Seneca Babcock, the West Side, and Fruit Belt, to make a difference in these communities. He has also served on the City of Buffalo Arts Commission. Dr. Clausen, I look forward to continuing to work with you as you assume this important role of leadership in the community. Congratulations again.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. I'd like now to introduce Barry Weinstein, Supervisor of the Town of Amherst.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. My association with Daemen College goes back to the 1970s when I was the medical director around 1976 to 77 and 8, 9. On behalf of the Amherst Town Board, we would like to congratulate Dr. Edwin G. Clausen, the 5th President of Daemen, on the event of his presidential inauguration and extend our sincere appreciation for his many contributions to the citizens of our community.
Thank you, Doctor. I would now like to introduce community leader, current trustee, former chair of the board, and friend, Mr. Peter Hunt.
It is my honor and privilege to represent the Daemen College Board of Trustees in this wonderful and even historic event, the inauguration of our 5th president, Dr. Edwin G. Clausen. I will be mercifully brief. Among the reasons for trustees to exist at an institution like this is to protect and enhance the assets of the college. Our greatest and most valuable assets are our people. Buildings are nice and important, and generally the things the trustees point to as accomplishments, but with few exceptions, the real impact on our students is made by people, our instructors, professors, administrators, and our support staff at all levels. These people are who we remember after we leave college. It is stories about people that we tell throughout the rest of our lives and the influence they made in molding us into the mature, contributing members of society that we hope to become. The most important job of the board is in regard to just one person. Here at Daemen, it is our job to hire the president. What did we see in Ed? I believe we saw and continue to see and will always see during his tenure what Daemen is all about. Going back to our roots with the Sisters of St. Francis, those innovative thinkers saw a need for a selective institution of higher learning that prepared teachers and nurses, among other vocations, in a disciplined and inspired environment. Innovation has continued through the transition to lay leadership as the school has nimbly isolated professional needs in society and built programs to meet those needs: physical therapy, physician's assistant, even change leadership, among many others. This progressive thinking has prepared Daemen graduates for contemporary society, meeting the needs of our community and an integrated workplace. Our society needs the Daemen graduate, and has been on our campus leadership has aptly identified ways for Daemen to stay relevant in a highly competitive higher education environment. Our society continues to need teachers and nurses, physical therapists, physician's assistants, artists, liberal arts thinkers, and leaders in change. We trustees believe that Dr. Clausen, based on his demonstrated skills and talents here and in previous positions, working with the team he has already assembled, is uniquely qualified to anticipate what our society needs in effective contributing college graduates. We believe he can and will guide Daemen as we continue to construct the learning environment that is adaptive to the changing ways students learn and interact with their peers and mentors. And we must adapt and stay as close to the leading edge of this curve as we possibly can, and responsibly can. Dr. Clausen will make sure we are there. Going forward, Ed, we must protect our unique position in Western New York, the Western New York world of colleges and universities, which is crowded and competitive. We are not UB, nor Canisius, nor Medaille, nor Buff State. We are Daemen College, and for that we need and now have in you a leader with the confidence of the trustees and a unique vision to match our unique position in this community and even the greater collegiate community well beyond this part of the state. When I learned I would be making these remarks, I asked around a little bit about Ed, not to stir up any hornets, but to gain a perspective that I simply did not have. When I would ask, how do you think Ed's doing? Almost invariably, the respondent would smile and then offer some comment about his energy, his forward thinking, and even his generally being a good guy. One person even said he'd, Ed that is, would turn this place upside down if he could. Ed, we're not quite ready for that, but we anticipate and appreciate the fresh, open, and progressive thinking you bring to Daemen. We know you will be successful, and most importantly, we know that you will do the one thing that is most important, at least to me, which is to constantly increase the value of a degree from Daemen College. Ed, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, thank you for accepting this appointment, and please accept our confidence, our congratulations, and our very best wishes for your tenure as the 5th president of Daemen College.
Thanks, Peter. I'd now like to introduce Dr. Andrew Wheeler, 2005 physical therapy graduate of the college and president of the Buffalo chapter of Daemen College Rosary Hill Alumni Association.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased and honored to be here today addressing you on behalf of all Daemen College Rosary Hill alumni and to welcome Dr. Ed Clausen as the 5th president of our college. I remember very clearly the first time I met Dr. Clausen. It was at a town hall style meeting in Wick Center. I was a student association member, and the topic of discussion was student attention span in relation to student learning styles. We proceeded to have a rousing 15-minute debate, which I believe I won, but it was an unfair fight because it was 2 against 1. It was myself and Dr. Fox versus Dr. Clausen. So at that time, it was clear that Daemen had someone very dedicated and very passionate working for them, someone who cared enough to express his ideas and his expertise to the student body directly and face-to-face. I am positive Dr. Clausen will continue the mission of our college to consistently and constantly evolve and thrive in an ever-changing higher education environment. On behalf of all Daemen College Rosary Hill alumni, I would like to welcome Dr. Ed Clausen as the president of Daemen College.
Thank you, Andrew. I'd now like to introduce Ms. Special Thompson, president of the Daemen College Student Association.
Welcome all members of Daemen College community and guests who have traveled far and near to be here today. As the president of the Student Association, I would like to congratulate President Clausen on his inauguration today. We as a college are very fortunate to have Dr. Edwin Clausen as our 5th president. With a vivacious personality and a laugh that is truly infectious, Dr. Clausen can easily relate to both students and staff alike. As our president for academic affairs and now as our president, Dr. Clausen has proven that he's very dedicated to the success of the students here at Daemen College. President Clausen has been committed to global programs and has fostered relationships with schools around the world, thus enabling our students to study abroad in places including China and Botswana. Thank you, President Clausen, for always believing in us and encouraging us to be all we can be. In that light, the President has asked me to share with you a little information regarding the Student Association. The Student Association works together with various student organizations, college committees, administrative officers, and faculty departments, always making sure that the students have a voice in issues going on campus. I encourage each of you to get involved in campus life here at college and consider running for an elective position. Congratulations, President Clausen. We look forward to working together with you to make Daemen College experience something to be cherished by all students.
Thank you, Special. Although he spent a significant number of years in higher education administration, Dr. Clausen has also been a lifelong faculty member and always considered himself a teacher at heart. Accordingly, it is appropriate that speaking for the Daemen College faculty this afternoon is Dr. Robert Moraes, Professor of English and Chair of the Daemen English Department. Let me give you a synopsis of Dr. Moraes' background. He began teaching at Daemen in 1977. He holds a PhD from the University of South Carolina and an MS and BA from SUNY College at Cortland. Professor of English and American Literature, Dr. Moraes has written about contemporary literature from both sides of the Atlantic. Dr. Moraes' most recent books, published in 2001 and 2007, are A Reader's Guide, Irvine Welsh's Train Spotting, and Irvine Welsh, a wide-ranging account of the contemporary Scottish novelist's work and career. In 2007, Dr. Moraes was recognized with Daemen College's Outstanding Faculty Member Award, presented at the State of the College address. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Robert Moraes.
Now and for something completely different, as Monty Python used to put it. On the way over, Ed mentioned this is an inauguration, not a roast, and I pointed out that nobody had told me that ahead of time, but I'll try to keep the remarks somewhere in between. When I was very little, I remember listening to a record, an actual LP, that my parents had. For what reason they had it, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm still grateful. It was a recording of stand-up comedy acts by Bob Newhart. And I can only remember part of one, but it seems appropriate today to start my remarks with them. In it, Bob Newhart pretends to be a commander of a nuclear submarine. Nuclear submarines were kind of new at the time, and they could stay underwater for a long period. And he's addressing his crew because they're about to surface. And what he says to his crew over the PA system is that they will be rising to the surface for the first time in a long time, and that he wanted them to know that they would soon be seeing the familiar skyline of either New York or Buenos Aires. I mention this because I think that when Ed came and started his tenure as Vice President for Academic Affairs, that I and probably quite a number of faculty wondered what familiar skyline we might be seeing in the next year, 2 or 10. Ed came with a great deal of energy, as was mentioned before, and he came with a great many ideas. I do remember a meeting of the chairpersons of the departments and programs at which Ed spoke at great length and set forth a very, very ambitious agenda, all of which the chairs of departments and the rest of the faculty were meant to take up in the rest of that year and years to come. And I remember being a bit overwhelmed and asking Ed at that meeting, again early in his tenure, if he could prioritize that list for us. I think that Ed was rather bemused by my question, as if why would anyone need to prioritize? They were all of first priority. But he did say that he would indeed prioritize those and send that list to us. I'm still waiting at this point for the list. It's easy, I think, at times to criticize Ed because he has so much energy and he has so many ideas, and not all of them pan out, but enough of them do to have significantly changed the institution in all sorts of ways. In 1980, there was the Yeshiva decision, which said that faculty at institutions like Daemen's had a role in the management of the institution. On more than one occasion, Middle States Accrediting Board felt that that was not the case at Daemen. And thanks to Marty Anderson as the previous president during his tenure, and especially through the efforts of Ed Clausen, faculty now have a lot more say in the institution. We have a lot more work as a result of that, too. And so we're grateful that our teaching load has been slightly reduced. And that's one of the many changes here. I look forward to the next few years of Ed's presidency as I enjoyed the years of Marty Anderson's. I certainly have enjoyed the years of Ed's tenure as Vice President for Academic Affairs. I may go back just in my closing to Bob Newhart's commander routine. He points out during that little routine that his crew always knew that his door was open. And he points out they also knew why his door was open. It had been stolen and he wanted it back before the voyage was over. Ed's door has always been open. It's always been easy to talk to him, and I'm sure that will continue during his time as tenure. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. My favorite Newhart skit was Abe Lincoln's speechwriter, who, talking to Abe, said, "It's 87. You keep saying 87. Just do the speech the way Charlie wrote it." So I will as well. We are here this afternoon to celebrate the inauguration of the future leader of Daemen College. Leadership by its very nature requires a range of skills, not only achieving excellence in one's chosen field, but also having a deep and abiding concern for the community we live in. Our next speaker is someone who, by any standard, is a leader in the healthcare field here in Western New York and beyond. He is someone who has a long record of professional accomplishments and who continually gives back to his community, our community. Wesley L. Hicks, Jr. is a professor of otolaryngology and head and neck surgery at Roswell Park Cancer Institute, where he specializes in head and neck surgical oncology. He also serves as director of the Head and Neck Surgical Fellowship Program at Roswell, the nation's first cancer research, treatment, and education center. Dr. Hicks is also professor of neurosurgery at the University of Buffalo School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences and a fellow of the American College of Surgeons. Dr. Hicks' research interests focus on tissue engineering, wound healing, and the mechanisms involved in wound repair. His laboratory is studying novel work in bioengineered devices for enhanced wound repair, the cellular microenvironment, and tissue remodeling. Dr. Hicks is a key partner in the advanced wound healing work being done by Daemen College, Roswell Park Cancer Institute, and the University of Buffalo research team. Dr. Hicks was among Western New York's community leaders honored by the National Federation of Just Communities of Western New York for 2011. He was recognized as one of America's leading doctors in 2007-2008 by the Black Enterprise for his leadership in the field of otolaryngology. In publishing the third annual listing of America's leading doctors, the magazine recognized 140 African American physicians and surgeons from around the United States who specialize in neurology, and also obstetrics, gynecology, dermatology, urology, cardiology, pediatrics, and oncology. The criteria for selection was recognition as a national leader in each doctor's particular field and certification by the American Board of Medical Specialties. The editors also consulted and received recommendations from a number of professional organizations such as the National Medical Association, American Medical Association, Association of Black Cardiologists, and the American Cancer Society. Dr. Hicks holds an MD from the School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences at the State University of New York at Buffalo. He holds an ADDS from Meharry Medical College, Nashville, Tennessee, and his BA is from Cornell University. Dr. Hicks served his residency at Manhattan Eye, Ear, and Throat Hospital, New York Hospital, Cornell Medical Center, and Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York. He served his fellowship at Stanford University Medical Center. Dr. Hicks is board certified in otolaryngology by the American Board of Otolaryngology, the National Board of Dental Examiners, and the National Board of Medical Examiners. We have many advantages to bring about the high quality of life in Western New York. The level of available high quality health care is certainly one of those factors, and we are fortunate to have world-class practitioners such as Dr. Wesley Hicks here among us. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges. You know, my mother and father would not recognize that kid. They couldn't get to clean up his bedroom there from all that. What a mess. You know, I'd like to thank the Board of Trustees and President Clausen for the honor of introducing him as the 5th president of Daemen College. I mean, it's a wonderful achievement. And I'd like to give a special thanks to the faculty, students, elected officials, alumni and friends of President Clausen who've taken time out of their own lives to recognize this singular accomplishment. You know, the investiture of President Clausen, I feel, personally, is great for Daemen, but much more important for our region. I think that his investiture, in fact, assures Daemen will continue to be at the forefront of liberal arts education and the allied health professions. It always amazes me and gives me personal satisfaction when a body, in this case the Board of Trustees and the search committee, collectively come to the right decision. It gives me a real sense that democracy truly does work, because as I hope to explain later in my remarks, Dr. Clausen is uniquely qualified for this position and for the leadership role here in Western New York. And a special satisfaction, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that when Provost Clausen and President Adamson started this journey together in 10 years, they in fact made a footprint in Western New York in liberal arts education that both the University of Buffalo, where I'm faculty, Canisius College, Hilbert, and all the other schools have, I think, an enviable position to look at the work they've done in our community. Ed is a friend, and I promise you, President Clausen, that'll be the last time I use your first name in public like that, because you are President Clausen. As I was looking over my hen scratches this afternoon trying to decide what to say, a member of the Board of Trustees and the Vice President of Student Affairs, who obviously have heard me speak in public before, said, "Hey, Wes, you're going to make us laugh? What are you going to say this time to embarrass yourself?" Well, I promise you, if I say something embarrassing, it is a faux pas of my larynx and not of my mind or my heart, because I'm here because this is an important thing, important enough that I'm willing to open myself to potential public ridicule for what I say. So why am I here? Why am I here to talk about President Clausen? Because he's a man of true intellect without being pedantic. He's a man of integrity without being judgmental. He's a man of honor without being vain. I am an adopted child of Daemen College, and I chose to let those adoption papers come through because of the work that President Clausen, at the time Provost Clausen, did for this community and for this school. I'm a proud adopted son of Daemen and hope to continue that relationship for years to come. When you're putting together a talk like this, a lot of things run through your mind, your own education, where you went to school, the things you've done, and in particular, what makes for a good and important liberal arts education. Some may disagree, but when I looked at what I feel is the essence of that, part of that has to be the intellectual discipline one must teach and learn to grasp areas where you are unfamiliar, to take the things you're good at and make them better, to take the things you do not know anything about and expand those horizons. And the fulcrum upon which that intellectual energy is spent, the grease of those wheels, is truly education. But when you think about education, to me there's a clear difference between an educated man or woman and an educator. And I'll take, again, this is where people may ridicule me, I'll take an example of my own life. When I first met, at the time, Provost Clausen, about 8 or 9 years ago, Gene Hill and I were guests of Judge and Mrs. Green to his house, and it was a cocktail party, and I'm walking, doing what I usually do, trying to stay out of everybody's way, and President Clausen sought me out. He said, "Well, you know, my name's Ed Clausen, I'm the new Vice President of Academic Affairs, or provost at Daemen College. And I said, well, what do you do? Now, I thought it'd be news to people, but after the ceremony we saw, you know that President Clausen is an eminent scholar in modern Chinese history. It's fluent in Mandarin. And he started to explain to me when I asked what he did about the intricacies and the interrelations of the Chinese Cultural Revolution and its economic impact upon Western civilization and present economic philosophy of the my eyes started to glaze. But he's a polite guy. And he saw that though I was attentive, it was so far out of my world, I didn't quite grasp it. I'm an educated man, but I didn't quite grasp it. So he said, well, what do you do? And I explained that I worked at the university, I worked at Roswell Park, I was a professor there, and I had an interest in wound healing and tissue engineering. And he started asking me progressively more insightful, pleasant, intuitive questions. The conversation went on for 15 minutes. So he took my sort of garbled what I did and focused it. And focused the point, his last statement was, you know something, I think there's some real synergy between what your research group is doing at the university and what we're interested in doing in Daemen College. I'll get back to you. Sure. Well, he did get back to me. And let me tell you what that delivered some 9 years later. A true collaboration between Daemen, Roswell Park Cancer Institute, and the University of Buffalo. Over $6 million in funding for our research programs, 50% of that peer-reviewed. A new collaboration with Cornell University's Department of Material Science. 2 more funded grants being presently done by our collaboration to go out this November to the NIH. The start of a startup company called iFiber at Cornell University for the interest of wound repair. And in addition, maybe the crown jewel of this, the Wound Healing Center for Daemen College. That's the difference between an educated man and a true educator. So, a leader. I mean, that kind of goes without saying. But what has always amazed me over our 9-year association is the fact that his temperament and demeanor are always aligned with what's necessary for the successful completion of a project, with a moral certitude that at the end of that project, something better will happen, something better be done. Now, I can remember once after one particular contentious meeting while we're trying to put this collaboration together, I mean, steam. I mean, I was hot. Steam was coming out of me. I was just fuming inside. So he took me into his office, we sat down, we talked about what we needed to do. And I said, you know, how in the world do you put up with all these personalities and egos and problems, and what do you do with that? And he said, you know, I kind of agree with what Joseph Addison said, 18th century philosopher. He said that what a sculptor is to a block of marble, education is to the human soul. And you know, he said that the human spirit is too precious a commodity to let petty differences get in the way of what needs to be done for a college, for a community, and for a nation. I literally went home and wrote that down. I never knew that I'd be using it someday to describe what I think is an extraordinary man. With the selection of President Edwin Clausen as the 5th president of Daemen College, the board has truly put an artisan, a sculptor, at the helm of this most important regional endeavor. So I wish again to formally congratulate President Clausen as he and Daemen embark upon what I believe will be one of the most exciting and prosperous times in their history. Thank you, President Clausen, for this honor, and thank you all for your time.
Dr. Ed Clausen has been with the college as the Chief Academic Officer for over 10 years. He's done an outstanding job in that capacity. For example, he's played a lead role in guiding the college to a Middle States reaccreditation. He was instrumental in developing a new self-study for the college and contributed greatly and has been a leader in implementing the college's strategic plan. He was the moving force behind the redesign of the college core curriculum, which has balanced and achieved parity between the college's traditional arts and sciences programs and the college's professional programs. When our president for 16 years, Marty Annisman, announced his retirement last year, the Board of Trustees quickly realized that it already had within the institution the perfect individual to fill the void that would otherwise have been left and carry on the mission of the college without missing a beat. Ed Clausen has the intellect, the experience, and the drive to lead Daemen College for the next few years, and the Board of Trustees are pleased that he has accepted the position as the 5th president of Daemen College. Therefore, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, it gives me great pleasure to present Daemen College's 5th president, Edwin G. Clausen, with the presidential chain of office.
If I had half a brain, I'd just go sit down. After what the litany of kind and gentle words from everybody up here is really quite amazing. For once in my life, this is actually going to be a short presentation. Well, it's short for the kinds of presentations that I normally give. Former President Anderson was down there with a big grin, about this big, saying, yeah, I've heard this for 11 years, now 12. It really will be, but the list of acknowledgments and thanks is going to actually be much longer than the presentation. I want a special thanks to Tom Bridges, not only for the words and for the faith, but also being willing to take over as the host for Carolyn Hassett-Burke, who is the board chairperson, who had to be away. I owe a great deal to the members of the Board of Trustees at Daemen College. For 11 years, I've worked with them, and for 11 years, I've been in awe of how much of a pleasure it is to be able to work with a board of such sophistication, compassion, and energy. And I want to thank my family, many of whom are here. Joyce, you don't mind standing up, will you? Stand up. My wife, Joyce. Whose beauty is only surpassed by her intelligence, her energy, and with me, being married to me, her patience. Ms. Jackie Hyman, my mother-in-law. Joyce's son, Matt, who's somewhere around here and spends most of his time hiding so nobody will know that he's related to me. There he is. My brother, John. My first cousin, Jack. And also to my son and daughter, Aaron and Leah, who unfortunately can't be here. I'd like to thank the civic leaders represented on the stage and the civic leaders who have some others I've seen in the audience. Thank you very much for attending this inauguration. President, I love clapping, but if you do that, we're going to be here until 8 o'clock at night. All right, because there really are a lot of people I have to say thank you to. There are a huge number of presidents, chancellors, and their representatives who are here. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Some of you have made long treks, including from the University of Botswana in Gaborone, Botswana, and from the South China University of Technology in Guangdong, China. Thank you very much for having attended this. I don't know what I can say about Dr. Wesley Hicks. I guess now, we had a routine one time on the on the judge's porch about how different people greet each other. And I've always been a little loose in my greetings, I'm afraid. I've been tightening it up ever since that afternoon. And now, since I'm always going to have to be President Clausen, I guess it's always going to have to be Dr. Wesley Hicks. I can't thank Wes, not only for the words, but it hasn't been in fact, his good counsel, wisdom, and friendship that has helped me understand this region and provided an early vision of what needed to be done to help make Daemen College fulfill its long-term promises. And there are two people, one in absentia, but I can see him sitting right there. There are two people who I suspect need little or no introduction. One is Justice Samuel Green, who is in absentia, but perhaps more importantly is his wife, Ernestine Green. Ernestine and Sam, their intellect, their wisdom, and their companionship have in fact provided a constant source of inspiration ever since I met them 7 years ago. I got a lot of friends that are here, and I'm sitting there, sometimes you can't see the lights, and I'm squinting. And I said, nah, can't be. Squinted some more. And in fact, a lifelong friend of mine, I don't know whether it was kindergarten or grammar school, we started going to school together, and then college and onward from Vancouver, Canada, sent an invitation, never heard a damn thing from him. And he's sitting right there in the second row. So he came out here, Al Morty. So there are lots and lots of others, people who have made a long track and have come here for this, and I'm tremendously honored for this. They're the architects of the event, and I don't know how to thank them. Sherry Gustis, who's the director of my office, Margene Wise, Mike Andre, and Dave Cristantello, they worked hours and hours and hours. I stay up late, as you know. Sherry has been a wise sleeper, only going to bed about 10 o'clock, getting up at 6 o'clock, kind of the normal human being. I'm now up at 2, I stay up to about 3 in the morning usually, and I'm getting emails from Sherry on the work that she's doing for this. I'm hoping once this event is over, she can go back to her normal routine. Margene Wise is the director of events. She does a phenomenal job with everything. Literally every event on this campus is well run, and it's because of her. Dave Cristantello is a colleague. He's the vice president for development and external relationship, and his guiding hand is throughout this whole event. Skip Schweitzer puts together all of this physically on campus, and all the folks in maintenance. I can't thank you enough. Jim Baccarati and all his compatriots in media who put the media on stage. And everyone in Hallmark, and I really mean this, people who serve us such good food here have had incredible patience and flexibility. But I probably thank, perhaps aside from my family, I probably thank the most the faculty. Would you mind standing up wherever you are? You're scattered all over the place. The faculty, stand up just for a minute, please. I've had the opportunity to work with this faculty now for 11 years, and as Bob Murray suggests, by and large, it's been successful. But it has always been, from my perspective, an absolute pleasure. And I think Wes captured the flavor of that. This is an extraordinarily talented faculty, and a faculty that both President Emeritus Anderson and I listened to in great detail and great depth. And I think in part the only reason the last, I'll say for me, 11, 12 years have been successful is because of their energy, dedication, and commitment. I also thank the students who are here, but I thank the students everywhere I've been, because they are, in all honesty, the raison d'etre. I've spent over 30 years in this profession. Cabinet members, Rich Ann Mankey, who's the Vice President for Student Affairs, Dave Cristantello, Vice President for External Relations, Patricia Brown, Vice President for Enrollment Management, Robert Beiswinger, Money Man as I call him, Vice President for Business Affairs, Michael Brogan, Vice President for Academic Affairs. And then there's the President Emeritus. I'm not sure what to say about him, except that it's not just an honor, it's not just a pleasure, it's much more than that, of serving with him for 11 years. And if I do things right, it has a lot to do with what he taught me. If I do them wrong, most of the time, it will be my responsibility. So I thank him deeply, and I'm really honored that he could attend. Thank you. Now, the body of the presentation. Now we get short. You know, my mother and father were interesting people. They were contrasts in lifestyles, contrasts in ideas, contrasts in political thinking, contrasts in energy levels. And to have grown up with them was amazing. And I remember that they had a discussion one time. My father would have come out of the Martin J. Anderson School of Thought. He said, the briefer, the better. My mother looked at him and she said, well, if it's brief, it probably shouldn't be said, and they should have just sat down and not gotten up in the first place. You have no idea how much I'm like her. Anyway, I want to talk very briefly, not so much about issues. I think we're all familiar with them. Revenue. Being adrift, according to the latest scholarship. Globalization, access, cost, technology, burnout, online versus traditional learning, dwindling numbers of college-age students, non-traditional students, students working long hours, employers maintaining that only they know what students need to learn, and an obsession with assessment with so many layers to almost render us speechless. These are just a few of some of the most serious issues that higher education has to deal with in the next 10 years. But the question really is, and I think everybody knows it, everybody acknowledges it, but the question is, how do you deal with them? Not what do you deal with, but how do you deal with them? And I look at my own life, which I assure you, someone like Al could tell you, is absolutely amazing to be standing up here. And so I figure there's got to be serendipity involved to solve these problems. Now, I don't mean providence, divine inspiration, or karma. Those of you who know me well enough know that I would never suggest that those things have had much to do with my life. But serendipity in the sense of plain old-fashioned roulette, blackjack type luck. Just simple luck. Luck has a lot to do with success, and I'm afraid all too frequently we're unwilling to admit that. It would have been unusual for me not to go to college. The family I came out of, right? My mother was highly educated. My father was a successful surgeon. Grew up in San Francisco and other parts of the East Bay. I mean, to not go to college would have been the exception rather than to go to college. That's luck. I didn't sit up there and say, well, I think I'll be born to those people. Right? So, you know, I think leadership is partly luck, but only partly. The majority of leadership has to combine curiosity, knowledge, innovation, planning and implementation, and the willingness at times to be wrong. As Bob Murray suggested, every idea I've had, I think, is a good one. And I'm willing to put it forth, and you can't be wrong on some issues, and you can't be wrong a lot, but you have to be willing to be wrong sometimes. And if you take these and you mix them in a cauldron, I think what you begin to come up with are fundamental traits or characteristics that lead one to the current conclusion that higher education, if we're going to deal with these problems, has to be done through courage. Courage. Now, there's a lot of meaning in courage, but what I mean is that those of us in leadership positions in higher education have to be free of binding perspectives, binding ideologies if one prefers, that imprison us, making exploration, innovation, compassion impossible, and render curiosity only a relic of the past. I believe in old school practices. And I saw some old school out in the hallway today. You know, we have machines that can shred things. And I stand down at the end of the hall and I watch a colleague of mine look for a piece of paper, take it over to the bin and tear it. Go back to another one, look at it, take it back over there and tear it and put it in. And I assure you, if you knew who this was, you'd laugh like hell, because he's one of the smartest human beings I've ever encountered. But he likes doing it old school, that way. Now, I don't mean that kind of old school. I can't get to a shredder fast enough when I have to get rid of stuff. What I'm talking about is the colleges and universities must be, have to be, places of intense, free, and open inquiry, whose reason for existence is to explore the world and humankind and to stimulate compassion and move us towards a more secure future and to help us ameliorate gross social injustices. Daemen College involves this, embodies this by excelling and preparing our students in three ways: intellectual rigor, service to the local and global communities, and third, professional excellence. Now, Daemen has accomplished excellence in these three areas because as a collective, not as individuals, as a collective, we've had the courage to do the following and must continue to do so into the future. I love it when you turn these over and I know where I'm going, but I'm going to make sure I know where I'm going. First and foremost, Daemen prides itself on understanding the limits to competition and the virtues of collaboration. Most of us would say and understand, in the United States anyway, that a free market, free enterprise, and free competition is essential. But there's also another perspective, and that other perspective is that this society is at its greatest when it works together and collaboratively and collectively on very specific and directed goals. Daemen believes in this and has let this principle speak for itself. Here, just to give you a list of things that we've done. North American Mobility Consortium with Canada and Mexico. CIEL, or CIEL, the Consortium for Innovative Environments and Learning. It's a 14-college university consortium that shares everything from faculty, curriculum, students, and overseas programs. Western New York Service Learning Coalition, Daemen started. The Western New York Council of Academic Vice Presidents, started by Daemen. Joint programs and sophisticated research generously outlined by Dr. Hicks with Roswell Park Cancer Institute and the University of Buffalo. Joint ventures with St. Bonaventure. Joint ventures with Beijing University of Chinese Medicine and with the South China University of Technology and the Arts. We have a comprehensive development program that is emerging with the University of Botswana in Gaborone, Botswana. We have similar programs in Ireland, Finland, Germany as part of our EU-US consortium partnership. We just signed an MOU with the government of Mongolia that spells out cooperation in the medical and animation fields. We are about ready to inaugurate our new International Center for Excellence in Animation that involves collaborations with institutes and universities in China and also with certain parts of the University of Buffalo. There's also the highly practical recent collaboration negotiated by Bob Beislinger that brings colleges and universities together to try and keep health insurance costs down. And there's much more that I could tell you about. But what's really, really important is that this integration is for the common good of the students and for society, and in general needs to be strengthened, especially in times when resources are increasingly under assault. That leads us to the austerity factor. I don't like austerity. My family will tell you that, right? Now, by that, I don't mean I overspend, but I like to spend what I have, okay? And when I do spend what I have, more often than not, it actually makes me some more money. And so I think we have to resist austerity programs, because frequently the term austerity is used to do what? Bend you, shape you, form you, and send you in a particular direction. So we need to resist them. And if we're going to resist austerity measures, that means we have to have revenue. And I think we're pushing awfully hard now on students and parents in terms of how much money we can continue to charge them for higher education. So we need to work hard as a collective to restore cuts that have come from a variety of sources, but we must find new sources. What Daemen College is going to attempt to do, or at least explore, is the possibility of social enterprises that do two things. Provide students with an incredibly rich learning environment and bring in additional revenues to the college that will be able to allow us to continue to pay for the things that we know are necessary for an exemplary higher education. Lastly, we need to have the courage, and I'm thinking how to put this because I don't want to be misunderstood. We need to have the courage to educate, not placate. All right? And what I mean by this is, we know at Daemen College, other college universities, what students should learn. We know this. And we don't need to be told by others that what we're doing is either wrong, should be extremely modified, or in fact should be completely changed and reinvented. It's going to take courage to resist that. There's going to be a great deal of pressure, in fact, for that. We know that, in fact, great people, great citizens in this room are not made, frankly, by their professional education. They're made by the other sides of their education that imbue them with a deep sense of compassion, a deep sense of commitment, and, I dare say, make them interesting people. Fun to be around, pleasure to talk with, engaging, challenging, multidimensional. We cannot and should not abrogate our responsibility to educate our students in those ways, as well, of course, as giving them the most profound professional education we can. Now, in conclusion, let me say that the worst thing that can happen to Daemen is to be complacent. Complacency really is the devil of higher education. Always has been, is even more so now. But even more than the threat of complacency is the threat of negativity. And you know as well as I do that it's everywhere in the society today. Optimism is nowhere to be found. I looked over at Patrick Welsh, who runs our Center for Daemen, runs our Center for the Veterans and Veterans Families. I look at him because he represents optimism. And I hope I do. Because negativity, I promise you, will create inertia. Inertia feeds stasis. And stasis is the enemy of higher education and of Daemen in particular. Stasis emboldens those who would dismantle that which has made U.S. higher education, in all honesty, the envy of the world, and given rise to one of the most dynamic societies in history. As the previous president did, and I promise you I will, stasis will in fact not grip this college. And Daemen will continue to meet the aforementioned challenges with a proper mix of courage, innovation, and tradition, so as to maintain and increase its efficacy and its focus on students. There's going to be good food in the next room. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I can't tell you how much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please rise for the benediction, which will be given by Cassandra.
Benediction, as many may know, is the Latin word for blessing, the more familiar the word to most of us, just as we often seek the blessing, that is, the well-wishing and approval of others. Today, at this moment, we wish to extend a blessing of our own to President Clausen. Thank you for blessing us with your vision and leadership, your knowledge and experience, your talents and skills, and your dedication to higher education. And to all of our Daemen family and friends gathered here in celebration, please join me in congratulating President Clausen as the 5th president of Daemen College with heartfelt and hearty applause.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Mr. President. There'll be a reception immediately following in the WIC social room, which is next door. Please remain in your seat.